Well, let's round this up today, guys, talking about homeownership as an investment, kind of coming off of the tail end of new development here in our own neighborhood, coming in the next 5 to 8 years, probably.
Three. It said about 3 years before they even hit a shovel.
To break ground, right.
Yeah.
So then we'll see units in maybe 5 to 8, I think. I don't know. Homeownership as an investment. Maryland governor says high prices mean fewer young adults can benefit from CNBC. Now, this one is a little bit... I'll say short on the story, only because there's a lot that's happened between the reference point of 1980 and 2025.
Yeah.
It's 45 years of information on a page and a half. That's not. It represents 45 years of time passing. But the whole idea here is that housing is something that, generally speaking, historically has been something you've been able to bank on that creates value over time. You pay down the debt, you own it, it's in your family, you put it to the next generation, and they have the financial windfall of inheriting it. So, these are all things that I find myself on the side of supporting, of course. I do somewhat worry, but not up at night worry. I'm just watching with one eye, I don't know how this is going to work out for everyone following in our footsteps. I just don't know. Because it feels like the train left the station on most people, and unless they can get on some sort of financial train to catch up to it, you got housing pricing racing way far ahead of income increase, and I don't necessarily see a solution on that right in front of us.
Well, yeah, it says it clearly here. Since 1980, median home sales prices have increased much faster than median household incomes, according to the Urban Institution. Then it says for some, that's putting home ownership out of reach.
Yep.
And like I mentioned earlier, Brian, for your kids, right? Where are they going to find a home? In this case, do you feel that it's going to be easier for them to find financing for a home than what it is now?
No.
It's just, those are the things that we're facing right now. Those are the things that we have to figure out how to stabilize so that we can give them that dream of home ownership as well, without feeling like they have to break piggy banks and, go down the bank and just deplete everything they have there, their retirement, their life savings. This is what looks like what's going to happen, what's going to need to happen to these generations to come.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary, to be honest.
Well, so here's one thing I think we've talked about, and you've talked about this more of your personal story, but kind of tucked in other things we covered, which is you're looking ahead and going, okay, well, if I think that obtaining housing is going to be more difficult for my sons and my grandchildren, then what can I do about it now? And even if you're younger, but then you don't have grandkids yet, thinking about, okay, well, what do I do today? Yeah. And maybe it's that first couple of years where it's a little challenging, but then it starts getting easier over time, and over time it's more easy, and you get older, but you have it. It's kind of more of the have it versus not have it. Absolutely. Versus, well, I'm only going to have it if it's easy. Well, that might not actually work out at all then. So I think that this is also kind of a smoke signal, if you will, to the future of generations. Be like, hey, homeownership still can be a financial gain for your family long term, but you have to do something about it. And the advocacy here is him telling his own story. It's like, this isn't just a shelter. It was financial security for the generation that was coming up behind my parents, who bought their house and got the quote unquote American dream. But then that does pass down, And fortunately, my sister and I are in that beneficiary as well position. When my folks pass on, they have a house. They've always had a house, and so my kids will be the same situation. So there's that kind of legacy passing on the baton that I think can help financially, especially if there's uncertain economic times ahead.
Yeah, I do like what he actually states right here is that's what housing helps provide. Moore said, it's not just shelter, it's a security, it's an investment, it's a chance you can tap into something if an emergency happens.
And that's, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, it's okay. No, you're good. But I mean, he just adds more flavor to that, which it's so true when you put that in perspective. We use it as a shelter, but there's moments where I got to send my kids to college. I gotta, I had an emergency where my roof is done, or my debt got out of hand because I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know how to budget. So you can go to this instrument, your home, tap into that equity, and give yourself that lifeline that, you may well deserve, and get out of these situations if needed, or even, again, use it for college, where now I give my child that opportunity to do something that they wanted to do. Whether they use that, degree or not, I don't know, but you're giving them a chance at a different life, if that makes sense.
One of the things that comes to mind from what William was sharing in the article is, to me, this kind of instills like, you can leave your family or your kids a fortune, but that only goes so far if they don't have the right legacy. And what I mean by legacy is that legacy is tied more to the mindset, the values, and the principles that you instill in your kids. And the fortune is just a monetary transfer of funds, and if they don't have the right adequate mindset, then those funds are really virtually, finished as soon as they make the wrong decisions or in decisions that they don't make.
Yeah. One of the things I think, and I found myself thinking about this when I was preparing my comments and my notes for this part of the show today was, the data today is most often used as a predictor of tomorrow. There might be a little bit of an exception here because there's so many baby boomers that have homes that are at this low kind of lock-in effect interest rate where they have lots of equity because prices have gone up so much in the last 5 years. They're probably paying their mortgage payments at very low rates right now too. But because they are advanced in age, that's going to start turning over. And so I think you're going to start seeing a lot of inherited real estate in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe even as soon as 5. Yeah. I shouldn't quote the number, but there's some exorbitant amount of people turning 80 every day. And I can't remember.
Like 10,000.
Is that the number?
Something
okay,
like that,
I couldn't remember it.
Baby boomers turning.
Yeah, I heard Miguel say it, and I was like, "Wait, what?" It was some crazy number like that, 1,000 per day.
Yeah,
and I was like, "That's nuts!" Like turning 80, Brian. 10,000 per day. Can you imagine that? Turning 80 today, and then 10,000 tomorrow, then 10,000 the next day, and 10,000. So
I just imagined that was crazy.
It's 100,000 people in 10 days, right?
It's ridiculous.
Turning 80. But okay, so with that though, these people they're gonna pass away, and so so the reason I'm saying all this, guys, is because the 35 to 48-year-olds who we're kind of looking at now, they're like acquiring homeownerships like on one hand quicker because they're like we know we have to get in. But but there's still less of them cumulatively that are doing that.
Yeah.
But they're also in some instances, or maybe even most, they're going to be inheriting something, and so they will be homeowners. It's just going to be a matter of those keys being handed to them versus them having to buy their way into it. And I think that's going to skew some of the results.
Absolutely,
it obviously skew the results. That's a stupid comment. I mean, it's going to skew the results, which what I mean is like what we see now is not really a good indicator of what we're probably going to see happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
That's a huge transfer of wealth right there, Pat. You passed on.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the biggest we'll ever see. So it's time to take advantage of those. Here's another thing that I never understood, but the median net worth of a homeowner is $396,200. The median net worth of a renter is $10,400.
It's huge.
That's to
difference.
Tell you the power of owning a home. You have this other instrument, so important. So I really like that he put this article together because it really gives you a different perspective, a good understanding that it's true. And I think he went back to the 1980s because that's when he mentioned that my family migrated here. It kind of goes along with everything that we have, right? The non-permanent resident aliens and all that. It kind of goes hand in hand with all this. So I like the way you put these articles. It just gives you that accomplishment feel, like, hey, I got my home. He was able to go to college because the parents decided to tap into the equity. So this is not something that's just happened, last 10, 15 years. This is something that's been happening for a very long time. And people are able to tap into this property that's worth more. And that's just to tell you, properties will continue to increase. Even though I think it's tapped out, $960,000 in San Diego. I think we're tapped out. I think there's still more to come, especially if they're building, and then our military towns keep growing. If you go by Silver Strand and all that, we continue to see that they're building more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And why are they building more?
The demand.
That's it. There's more people coming in.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, like just hearing those statistics. And I've heard similar statistics before. It's just like, I wonder why people don't act or have the intent or the sentiment to be able to want to pursue, home ownership more if they know that, there's, more upside than there is downside. I understand that, there's the affordability gap and it's, very tough right now. But, there's, even if it takes 1 year or 5 years, I feel that the sentiment's like, I don't want to go through all that. I don't want to rent. And it's just, it's surprising because we were listening to this and like we heard the story, they were able to sacrifice their American dream so that, he could have the American dream. So it's just kind of like, a lot of people look at it still like, I don't know if I want to go through all that sacrifice, but we're giving you guys those stories that don't get that recognition that, they deserve.
Yeah. I also think it's because of lack of education. You know, for me growing up with a single parent home, my mom did buy a couple of properties, but I think she didn't keep those because she said she thought like, I can't keep it. I'm in a position where I need that money, so I don't know how to refinance. I'm just gonna sell it and I'm just gonna go pay down this thing and I'll buy another one later, right? Because it was much easier to say that back then. It's not this is a trend, I'm going to say after 2020, I think it's not so easy to say, oh, I'm going to sell this one. I'm just going to go buy another one right now, you know, in a couple of years. It's like, oh, dang, prices went up so high. They went, what, 44% in some areas?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not so easy to say that now. It's like, now what did I do? If hindsight was 2020, I wouldn't have got rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not that easy now to step it back into it.
Right.
You know, that home that you sold for $560, it's like, now I'm going to pay $800 for that.
Yeah.
It just also mentally,
right.
You're
like it's the same place.
Exactly.
same, different price.
It's very difficult, right? And that's what happens right now. Those are these times are changing. That's why we need more affordability. We need to build more homes. But you know, developers are being strategic. Why in the hell am I going to go build and then I'm going to go back to a mortgage meltdown like it happened back in 2008-9? We had a ton of inventory and look how homes just dropped. They dropped like 50-60% in some areas. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know? So I think is that, to answer that question, Brian, I think is just a lack of, you know, not understanding taxes, not having the proper education, what the true benefits are. And just some people, they can't live. They're already living paycheck to paycheck. So to put something on top of that with these higher interest rate is just going to put them in a, you know, in a predicament where I just can't do that right now. That sacrifice is not a sacrifice for me right now. Yeah. Sacrifice is for me to be able to rent and just still maintain my home.
I have potentially a nice way to put a bow on this one for you guys. I'm going to dust off the term soft landing. How about that? You ready? You ready for this? Here comes Andy's soft landing prediction. Let's say that all these people who are equity rich and they're boomers and they pass away and they're going to leave legacy and their children are going to inherit the house, inherit the home. They'll have a soft landing into home ownership, where they don't have to go through the same qualification. The affordability is going to be different. The loan balance that's on it is going to be a lot less. They could sell the house and have a windfall event financially. So I think there's going to be a soft landing for a lot of the people that are going to inherit real estate when people pass away, because there's so much equity right now.
The biggest transfer of wealth.
You like
Turbulence for all.
You like
soft
that?
Landing for some.
Hey, Jerome Powell, I'm stealing your word soft landing since you're not using it anymore. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to use it in this context, talking about generational wealth transfer. Sounds good, guys? You
right
like
next
that?
to this transitory,
No, I didn't say transitory. Yeah, no, it's going to transition to these people, but it's definitely not. No, I'm going to go soft landing. Soft landing for all you people coming up into home ownership when your parents unfortunately pass away. So.
Turbulence to everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to go on this other, on the ratio divided in home ownership rates. I just didn't. That was pretty crazy for me, Andy.
So I have a mixed opinion about this, and I've had this conversation with people in every single race category that was mentioned there, and there's two things that I've found to be true. Number one, there's disproportionate representation across our population, first of all, and number two, every single race group mentioned in here has their own challenges culturally with financial education. And that is predominantly the top two, whether they're number one or number two is not a non-issue, but those are the two things that get mentioned to me when I talk to my friends about this. So you're talking about Asians, you're talking about Asians, African Americans, and you're talking about Hispanic groups here and their ratio of home ownership. Yeah. And to our friends in real estate that represent each of those, and even my friends in finance or investment planning and that kind of thing, it's like, first of all, I friends in each of those, both of those things, real estate, mortgage, and then financial planning. And it's like, it's a literacy issue. And I don't mean illiterate versus literate. It's like, we have to teach people these things regardless of their race. And then also there's things embedded into the race where they have these ideas of how it should look or how it should be. And sometimes those are stumbling blocks rather than pathways towards it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you know, one of the biggest things with us Hispanics is, you know, like my mom would tell me, mijo, no compres eso. Si no tienes el cash, no lo compres.
Right.
You know, and so we interpret that everything has to be. And, you know, so then you got Dave Ramsey,
are you
right?
sitting on $960,000 of cash?
You see, like, yeah, exactly. So then you have people like Dave Ramsey, like, don't get into debt if you can't afford it, da, 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 da. You have all these mixed things, right? But honestly, there's nothing better than taking that leap of faith and just creating that action
Yeah.
behind it. Hey,
Yeah.
you want that? Just get in there, and then you figure it out if it's going to benefit. You know?
One of the saddest things I heard someone tell me, and this was a couple of years ago, and they're like, hey, listen, when I was growing up, I was told stay out of the system altogether.
Yeah.
Which means don't get credit cards, don't borrow anything ever, so that way you're just clean, and there's nothing on you. Well, the problem with that is when you go to qualify for a house, you need to have credit.
Exactly.
So it's like, so that's why I mentioned it's like the cultural thing and the education thing, when those go hand in hand, it's like you have to like be aware that, okay, this is going to help me get along this way into this possession of having keys in my own place. Well, but that takes some work. The puzzle pieces have to come together so you can actually qualify. One of those things is credit.
Exactly.
But if you're being over here being told don't ever get credit, not from a financial protection place, but from a hey, just don't be on anyone's books, like that's not going to help you when it comes to getting
exactly.
a
And
loan,
that's what I was getting at with my mom. If you can't afford it, pay. If you can't afford it by paying cash, don't do it, right? But it's so important. They never taught us go get credit and just pay your things on time. You know, when I got my first credit card, I just charged the heck out of that. And when the person was calling me because I didn't make the payment, I was like, Mr. Flores, are you going to make the payment? And I'm like, why? I don't have the money right now.
You
know?
guys gave me the credit.
You gave me the credit. What the heck?
Why you don't call me again?
Hey, I thought that's
you
why I was
calling
using
me?
this card.
But right?
That makes sense.
And that becomes the lack of education with these things. A lot of times it's like, well, you gave me the credit. It's your fault. You know, I didn't think paying these things, not paying these things on time was going to be detrimental to the future as I want to purchase a vehicle, as I want to purchase a home. I didn't know all these things.
Yeah.
You know?
You make such a good point. And it goes to the education, because I feel like even if you get taught one way, maybe in their culture and the way that their customs are, that doesn't make sense. Although here's the information, but yeah, sometimes we don't retain the information that's given to us because A, we don't learn like that. B, those examples aren't, able to be made in our head. So it's like, you really have to kind of personalize the way that you're teaching finances to different cultures, because in some cultures that could be good, some cultures that's bad, and all around this way that we teach doesn't work for everybody. So everybody has a customized way of being able to understand finance that's attached a lot to their culture and the way they're bringing up.
Yeah.
And I see this because it says, blacks, African American, and Hispanic, as Mexicans, like we're the lowest ones in the purchasing. But I really think that's because of, again, the lack of education that our parents had, because I'll tell you, I know hands down my grandfather, they were some of the hardest working people.
100%.
They worked hard.
Yeah.
But when it came to understanding things or reading or how to deposit a check and stuff, that's where it was lost. That's when then my mom came in. Well, you have to make your deposits like this and you can't pay beyond your means, But then they didn't teach us that other next step.
Yeah.
And so all that, like all my learning came from surrounding myself. When I bought my first home, who do you surround yourself with?
People that are homeowners.
That's it.
Yeah.
My neighbor, Art's right there. They're all there. So it's like, how do we do this? Well, how do we go get more?
Yeah.
And that's how it becomes. But then at times when the mortgage meltdown came down, I lost like 9 properties. You remember that. It was not fun. We bought right in front of Petco Park, and nobody helped me understand how I was able to maintain that. Although I did go to conferences and all these other wealthy people would tell me, just sell and pay the capital gains. No, I'm not going to pay Uncle Sam all this money. Guess what? I should have done it. And it's just hindsight, right? It's 2020. What do they know? I wasn't ready to listen. I wasn't ready to become that student yet. Now I'm in a whole different place.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to keep everything that I have here in San Diego. I'm not even investing in other states because here I know my own backyard. I know what it's going to be worth.
Yeah.
Here's where I can educate more people,
Yeah.
That's one of the things I appreciate about you, Will, is your enthusiasm and the way that you deliver the message, that it just takes one person to connect to that energy, and then their whole mind goes into like, oh, I need to figure this out. But it goes a lot to the room that you're in, the circle that you're surrounded, because other people are like, no, don't buy. Oh, I probably shouldn't buy. Like none of my friends are buying. Like, it's probably a dumb idea. I'm going to go and just talk about sports and stuff. But no, you're over here talking with conviction, and then you share your real life experiences, and I'm sure people are listening like, oh, if he can do it, and then the way that he's explaining the situation he's been, like, I can too. And that's honestly one of the biggest things that you want people to get from this podcast, that it's like, yo, like we're talking about real stuff that's happening to you in your life, and we just want to make sure you guys use these examples to be able to make better decisions or better informed decisions.
Yeah.
And like you said, if I can do it, come on now.
And I don't mean to talk down like that.
No,
from that point of view.
But no, I get that, and it's so true. you know, and I there's no offense in that. It's so true. And I say it, if I can do it,
You know, because it feels like
oh my goodness,
looking up to you. Right?
I get that. Like if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
For a fact.
Yeah.
For a fact.
Yep.
You know, and it's a fun journey. I'm telling you, you know, when I see the stats or what they say, the medium, a homeowner is worth $390,200. Like, that is so true. I get that, you know, and now we can pass on this legacy. Like earlier we said, you know, the baby boomers, that's going to be one of the biggest generational wealth transfers we'll ever see.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's massive.
Whole portfolio is
massive.
getting handed down.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
The portfolio wealth, plus we have the real estate
Stocks
wealth.
and whatever, bonds and
Like the next
Christ.
like 5, 10, 15 years is going to be pretty intense.
Yeah.
Intense, insane, both intense and insane.
And here's
I
the
guess.
thing: us as parents now have to teach when they get that inheritance, how are they going to keep that and hopefully pass it on?
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing.
So that's the word I wanted to use, not fortune, inheritance over legacy. Like, you know, so legacy, mindset, inheritance is just here's the money.
That's
here's
it.
what you inherit.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because you know there's, as you would I hope expect that, you know, when you divide things by race in the paper, it doesn't tell the whole story. And there's everyone's individual story. There's like kind of the collective story, and then there's the history as well. You know, history, you know, unfortunately was not that fond to Hispanics and to Black Americans for a long time when it came to housing, and there was rules against that. Actually,
it still isn't,
right.
We got
So,
the non-permanent resident.
well,
alien.
no, but I know, but what I'm saying, no, my point is like actually being like proactively excluded from housing and coming from that and moving getting away from that in history and moving towards everyone can buy a house. You know, that's obviously I'll say more of an equal playing field, but I think that then you have to start talking about the whole the financial education part where people actually have to embrace understanding what the system's asking of you in order to have the thing that you're being measured by. Or say, oh, we're going to measure homeownership by a race. Okay, well, there's so many variables in that. It's not just a black and white issue. Not to be funny, it's just not a black or white thing in this case. It has a lot to do with so many other things, and not all of them are measurable.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
This was measured, but on the first article, it wasn't. I just don't understand that.
Well, but even in the first article with the with the immigration policy, again, they focused it more on the Hispanic population because the announcement came on the back of the NAREP policy meeting. But it's like it's not just a Hispanic issue. It really isn't. It's maybe predominantly one like on the surface, but below the surface, it's a way bigger than that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.